Welcome to Executive Encore. This is the video podcast where we blend motivation, personal stories, and practical tips to help you to prepare for a fulfilling life as you approach the crossroads of your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. For those of you who follow me on a regular basis, you'll notice I have added 40 and 50 in there. Because when I started to do this podcast, I was approached by many women like Rebecca that saying, I have something to say on this topic. And so I wanted to open the floor because we all come across these crossroads in our lives where input from other people and insights from other people can be very valuable no matter what age we are. So this is almost like no age barrier here whatsoever. So I'm your host, Patricia Muir. We're going to explore navigating the crossroads at any age, the value of sabbaticals and intentional career pauses, and how to experience self-actualization as we live longer. So I'd like to introduce you to Rebecca Thomas. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Rebecca is in Australia, but she is a world traveler, and she is a coach specializing in navigating career crossroads through sabbaticals and career breaks. She will share her insights gained from her comprehensive understanding of sabbaticals, her personal experience, their ideal timing, and their potential impacts on our career trajectory. Our conversation will cover the concept of mid-career crisis and how intentional breaks can effectively help us to overcome career stagnation. Furthermore, Rebecca will highlight the substantial benefits, both tangible and intangible, of taking a sabbatical, emphasizing its role in our personal growth, resilience, and mental health improvement. So welcome, Rebecca, and thank you so much for being patient, getting on to this technical challenge that we had and getting over it, like panic stations at the last minute. But I want to ask you about how you can help us to understand what a sabbatical is if we're not in the typical profession that does have sabbaticals. So what are sabbaticals in a career break sense? Can you define that a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure. And thank you ever so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here. And yeah, amazing, isn't it, that we can do this whilst I'm sat in Australia and you're on the other side of the world. So for me, it really is around intentional periods of time where individuals step away from their regular work or professional responsibilities. I think the reason that I clump sabbaticals and career breaks together is that for me, that covers both of them. But there are differences. And the sabbatical really is where it's planned and sanctioned by the company, so by an employer. And so what that means is that you maintain a headcount within that employer. It can be that you return to the same role that you were doing. It might be that your headcount is maintained by the employer, but you have the opportunity to change countries or come to a start in a different role. They can be paid or unpaid. So we've seen a real increase in companies creating sabbatical policies and sabbatical programs where there are paid options. So there normally is a period of eligibility. And then after that, there is the paid benefit. But also many are unpaid and sometimes what we call leader-led. So even if there isn't a specific sabbatical policy or program, there is an understanding between the manager or leader and the employee of how long they're going to take off, whether it be unpaid. So that for me is a sabbatical. A career break on the flip side is exactly that. Intentional or not, it is a break in regular work, but it's not necessarily where you return to the same employer. And actually, interestingly, there's been some research done and 2 out of 3 career breaks happen to you. So they're not necessarily chosen. You know, if we think about redundancy, if we think about health, caring duties, personal situations. So 2 out of 3 are I suppose, happen to you and are not planned. However, there's still the ability to see it as a gift and be able to take a career break and have that intentional period of time, however long that be. So that's how I define them, and then the difference I see between a sabbatical and a career break.
So you spoke about the right time. Sometimes it's not a time of choice. Other times it's something that comes along with life where there's a break in our life. And so I love what you say about looking at it as a gift, no matter how it comes to us, because with a gift, we can do something, right? Now there are feelings when it does happen to us and it's not planned. But if we reframe it as a gift of time, I think you're going to talk a little more about that. But I just want to ask you about something that is mid-career. Like there's a mid-career crisis. And this is where there might be a time when there could be that opportunity or the gift for the intentional career pivot. Could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, sure. And look, I think the career crisis, as you mentioned in the intro, can happen at any time. And we can have more, I believe we can have more than one career crisis along the way. And so it doesn't have to almost be a mid-career. It can be a few moments of this feeling. And for me, the feelings are characterized by a period of starting to question and question whether you're in the right role, the right company, dissatisfaction, maybe being a bit disillusioned, questioning your intentions. So if I think about my personal experience, I felt as though I had never been intentional about what I did. I fell into recruitment. I rode an amazing wave and absolutely loved my time. But I don't think I ever intentionally meant to go into recruitment. I don't think I was lucky that I was in an amazing company that threw me opportunities that kept me engaged along the way. But it wasn't ever an intentional, I'm going to go for this role or I'm going to do this. And so I think the whole sort of career crisis is when you start to question, and that whole question around identity, question around purpose, and really then being able to take the time to, I suppose it's the inter-reflection, isn't it? And self-reflection around, is this what I want to be doing for the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years? I was at a conference recently and we were talking about how we're living for longer and so we're working for longer. And this whole redefinement around retirement and what does retirement look like? And does it have to be X or Y? And so it's that whole career crisis, I think, is when you start to question what's next, or what does the short term look like? What does the long term look like? And then starting to shape what the next chapter looks like. I always talk about my life as a book and having these chapters and what the chapters look like. And I think that career crisis is that point where you're questioning the chapter. Is it time to move on to the next chapter, close this chapter? Yeah.
I can see an interesting opening for each chapter if you're journaling about it. Okay, so how is this chapter going to be different when you're looking at it from being a book? And I was thinking about generations before us, like before you and before me, the same sort of thing where there wasn't really an intention. Like sometimes in some professions, definitely there are intentions. People study based on what the profession's going to be. But even some of those professions, they get to the point where they say, is this what I signed up for? And does this still fulfill me? Or is it not? There's the crisis. Does it still fulfill me? One of them is, I know many female lawyers that have made that decision to, if they either break away from being a lawyer or what I find with a lot of women I speak to, they say, I want to do it differently. So whatever profession they have chosen, if the opportunity is there, then they will look at a different way of doing it. But they need the time to be able to think about that, right? So that's where sabbatical comes in.
And I think the sabbatical piece or the career break piece is such a gift of almost bookmarking your chapters. Okay. And one of his books talks about mini retirement. For me, it really is sacred time. So it's about taking a pause, gifting yourself sacred time to be able to really explore what is going to serve you for the next chapter. And to your point, yes, of course, there are lots of areas and career choices where it's very intentional because you studied to be a doctor or you studied to be a lawyer. But who's to say that after 15, 20 years, that actually doesn't serve you anymore? And you might want to pivot and change and do something totally different, or as you say, use it in a different way or in a different environment. And what the sabbatical gives you absolutely is that time to be able to really do some introspective work, to look at what future me looks like and what do you want it to look like. I think depending on your circumstances, it's doing it together with your family or with your partner. If it's yourself, absolutely, very much you can be just looking at yourself, but it's about where you want to be, what you want to be doing, who you want to be doing it with. And what a sabbatical or a career break does is give you the time to do that.
Yeah. So there is a definite formula for that introspection. It's not just about taking the break and then all of a sudden you feel you have to go back again and you haven't taken the time to be very strategic. And so it's still work, right? Like it's personal work. It's your inner work that you're talking about on a sabbatical.
And yes, for me, but look, my goodness, people take sabbaticals for lots of different reasons. So I've worked with people who are writing. So they've taken a period of time to be able to publish a book. They've had this book in them for so long, but they have taken a career break to do that.
Okay.
Traveling is a big one. So I've actually got friends at the moment that are doing a circumference of Australia, and it is an intentional period of doing that. So I think, yes, there's lots of different reasons for taking a sabbatical, and I think it's so personal. I think what we're talking about is that midlife crisis and how to use a sabbatical then to be able to distinguish what's next and what's going to serve you next. And that is certainly one way. And my personal experience is that my husband and I took 6 months in 2016. I'd got to both a personal and a professional crisis almost. So professionally, it was, do I want to be doing this for the next 5, 10, 15 years? And the answer was no, but I didn't know what I wanted to be doing. And we also were expats. So we had been in Sydney for 7 years. Was this going to be home? Is this where we were going to stay? Were we going to sell up everything in the UK and France and make this the forever home? I didn't want to. My husband did want to. So it was navigating all of that as well. So it was that sort of personal and professional crisis, which the 6 months allowed us to work through together. And the beauty of having that time to be able to do that and why I see it as such a gift is that we're able to throw out all preconceived ideas, almost all kind of barriers. We had time to dream and we dreamt about what would perfect life look like? What were our non-negotiables? And nobody can have it all. There's no such thing as perfection. Patricia, I totally don't think there is, but we blue sky thought and then reverse engineered how we could get to the best possible outcome of what we wanted future us to look like individually, what we wanted to achieve, and then work back from that.
Okay. So what does your best view of yourself, what does that look like now? What's your life like right now?
So we had 2 non-negotiables, both of us. One was we both hate winter. So the deal was, so we couldn't live where you live.
Not today.
Not today. Not this week. So we made a pact that we would never have to endure winter unless we wanted to snowboard or ski or that was a choice. And we also wanted, our non-negotiable was to spend time with all of our favorite people, which fortunately or unfortunately were on 2 sides of the globe. So we're in Europe and in Australia. And so to do that, it was, okay, what does that look like? how do we achieve it? And so our life now, very privileged to say that we do April to November, beginning of November in France. And we're renovating a barn in France at the moment. And we're doing it ourselves. So my husband is amazing and very, very good at the tradey bit. So he's pretty much, that's his job. April to November is renovating the barn in France. That gives us the opportunity and the time to be closer to all of our loved ones in the UK, but not live in the UK because we both chose that's not where we wanted to be. And then when it gets too cold in France, we head back down under and come back to Sydney and do some traveling along the way. So we get to see all of our favorite people, and we also get to live an endless summer. To be able to do that, we needed a plan. So it doesn't just happen. So the sabbatical gave us the opportunity to dream this up. And then we needed a plan. And this is where I work with clients around integrating all of the amazing stuff you've done on sabbatical, how you then can integrate it back into what your dream is. And so we looked at very boring things like finances and how much we would need and how long it would take to save that. We looked at how I could career shift and pivot with all of my skills from a recruitment perspective and career coaching for 15 years, what that could then look like. And we had a 5-year plan. So we came back to Sydney. My husband's other non-negotiable actually is that he wanted to finish his career in Sydney in the warmth and not back in Europe. So we did 5 years back in Sydney where we really had a plan and reverse engineered essentially how we would get to our dream life. And that's what we're living today. But who's to say that in 5 years' time, it shifts again and we have to have a whole nother period of sacred time to be able to look at what the next chapter,
that's a good point because things do change, right? And so the good thing for you, favorable thing for you is that you have done it once. So the fear is somewhat reduced for doing something like that. Because I would imagine a lot of people listening and watching are saying, oh, that's so scary for me to lift my life out of a certain country or a certain area, go somewhere else and not knowing the risks and things like that. But you've done it once. It's achievable. It has to be planned. And that's why you talk about living a life by design, right? And that fits in with the reverse engineering as well. You got to design it and then reverse engineering. I would imagine next time you'll be a pro at this, I'm sure. But it's interesting because usually during this conversation, I ask about at what point did you experience something that told you what fulfillment was for you in life? I think you use the sabbatical to actually explore that, right? What would be fulfilling to us in life? Would you say that it's something that you do coaching around it? So do you find a lot of people are looking for that opportunity to do a little bit of dreaming and then help somebody reverse engineer it for them and let them know what they need to do in order for them to be comfortable doing it?
Yeah. And I think the lost opportunity is the actual integration. So I think a lot of people use the sabbatical and enjoy the sabbatical to do that dreaming and that internal work around what fulfillment means to them. So it's about defining that and then working towards that. But unfortunately, what we see a lot of the time is that however long the sabbatical, whether it be a 4-week sabbatical, whether it be a 6-month sabbatical, we then see, and it's normally around the 4-week to 3-month period of time back into business as usual. It's almost forgotten.
Wow.
So it got, And that's the lost opportunity. Is actually, And that's where I work with clients to really integrate it throughout life. And it was interesting. When I started doing this, I was offering on a program 2 coaching sessions post the sabbatical. And actually where we've landed and what we're doing now is actually then it goes on for longer than that, because actually the 2-3 weeks after the sabbatical, they're still riding the wave. They're still remembering all of the skills that they developed, all of the new perspectives that came in, the creativity stays with them. But actually it's the longer that you are back in your business as usual, that starts to slide.
Yeah.
So it's then that you need that almost the accountability partner, that check-in to ensure that what you learnt or all of the insights that you took from the sabbatical actually then is integrated back in. And we have lots of techniques that they use to be able to do that.
Yeah. I think that's really important. When you were talking about a couple of coaching sessions, I'm thinking, when it's your life, some of these things, such as a sabbatical and integrating action into your life, you have to take at least a year of someone championing you through that. Because yes, if you get to 3 months or 6 months and then you abandon it, you've lost a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
And an important question is, how would someone reach you so that they can talk to you about how you can support them, either in thinking about, okay, what would this look like for me? What would a sabbatical look like? And I need someone to help me to not fall off the track as I'm going through this. How would they reach you?
Probably the two best ways, Rebecca Thomas on LinkedIn. I do a lot on LinkedIn, and a lot of the individuals that I work with, of course, are on LinkedIn, okay? Because they're in careers, they have that career, all of those feelings of career crisis of, oh my God, I'm at a crossroads and I don't know what to do or how to do it. So LinkedIn very much. And then also Instagram, my Instagram handle is feel_good_getaways. So those are the two. And my website, of course, Feel Good Getaways.
Okay. So I'll put that all in the show notes, of course, but I just wanted to let people know there is an opportunity to reach you. And is there anything else? Is there anything that I didn't ask you that would have pulled out a real nice gem for people listening?
I think my final point is around mindset. So a lot of individuals that I am privileged to work with struggle around being able to actually see that they can take time off, whether that be financial, whether that be feelings of guilt to colleagues or to a partner or family. And so for me, it is really around mindset. And that's where I do a lot of work with individuals to really explore the mindset of how do we reposition this and what is possible and what is holding you back? What is it that's holding you back? And then also the mindset whilst you're on a career break or sabbatical, and the mindset around really leaning into what you need and what you want, rather than, I think we have so many societal pressures or preconceived ideas. The individuals that I work with, it's fascinating, but I would say 9 out of 10, what they believe or what they come to me and say, oh, I'm going to take a sabbatical and I'm going to do this. Once we've worked together, it shifts. Because actually climbing Kilimanjaro is not what they need or what they want.
Yeah. And that's very short term.
Everybody said to them, oh, they're going to climb a mountain or do a personal challenge or do this. So it's so fascinating that a lot of the time it really changes once they have looked inwardly and really explored what they need and what they want at that time.
Yeah. It has to be sustainable for a certain amount of time because, yes, climbing a mountain is a great thing, or golfing every day is a great thing too. But is that sustainable for the next 20, 30 years? Like for some people, that's how long it's going to be. So I'm going to put my takeaways into the show notes as well. And just to let listeners know, I really appreciate that they have been listening or they will be listening. And I'd like to invite them to take me up on the offer for the newsletter, because Rebecca will be featured in the newsletter this Sunday, which I believe is March 24th, if I've got my dates right. But please sign on to the newsletter. That will be in the show notes as well, the link for that. It will also go on LinkedIn so that Rebecca and I get more out there to people who really need to connect with Rebecca to learn more about how do I integrate this rather than it just being a break, right? So again, thank you very much, Rebecca. Really enjoyed having you in this conversation today. And for people who are your followers who will be watching this, I appreciate their time as well. I'd like to invite everyone to join me on the live videos that I post, but also on the replays where I share more conversations with inspiring women like Rebecca who bring a completely different mindset to the table sometimes, that we can do it. We can create this best life for ourselves, and we can explore the secrets to personal and professional fulfillment and self-actualization. And we can discuss any options available that Rebecca provides. And I hope that you contact Rebecca. My call to action is specifically, or my request is, please give us a thumbs up on this video, comment and share with your friends and colleagues and family who would benefit from this conversation. If you're listening to the podcast, please provide your rating and comments. I think we all know by now that rating and providing comments helps us to spread this very important information that we all take time to share. So no matter what your age, your gender, or your perspective on well-being, retirement, fulfillment, as we live longer, I invite you to be a guest and also to watch the show on a regular basis. We want to inspire one another. So you can contact me on my website at patriciamuir.com and read the Encore weekly blog on my blog, which is on the website as well. So I'm going to leave you with those thoughts. Rebecca's insights will be highlighted in the newsletter on March 24th. I just double checked it. And thank you for being with us today. Thank you very much,
Thank
Rebecca.
you so much.
You have a wonderful
Patricia.
day. Okay, then.
And you.
Bye.